I'd like to call the Tuesday, March 19, 2019 Papillion City Council meeting to order. Mr. Chapman, would you please take the roll?
Sunday, Mumgard, Gaines, Glover, Jaworski, Klug, Stubbe, Ingberg.
We've got Scout Troop 359 from St. Columbakill with us tonight. I want to invite them up to help lead the pledge. Gentlemen. Right up here. Let's go.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. There you go. Thank you again. Do we have an affidavit of publication on file?
We do.
And a current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the council chambers. We got two presentations tonight. One, Mr. Thompson, you want to come up here? John's here too? I didn't see him. John, come on up. Public Works has been a little busy between snowstorms, potholes, floods, 12-hour shifts, turned into 24, turned into 36, turned into 48. We actually had somebody had a recognition for them this morning, a little thank you dinner, breakfast, and a lot of them didn't even show up because they wanted to keep working. I mean, talks a little bit about the dedication that we've got. So what we wanted to do is just give a proclamation to recognize Public Works. Whereas removing snow and ice during the winter months is a critical task, and whereas Papillion depends on snow removal personnel who work long hours under adverse weather conditions to help ensure the rest of us can travel to our jobs, schools, retail stores, medical facilities, and more. Whereas before, during, and after winter storms, snow removal personnel use their years of knowledge and skills in a determined effort to make roadways safer for all motorists, as well as maintain the steady flow of goods and services to support Papillion businesses and industries. Whereas multiple city departments rally to remove snow on approximately 300 miles of roadway along all public areas and walks. And whereas snow removal personnel have responded to 12 major and several minor occurrences to remove snow and ice from the public areas so far this season. And whereas snow removal personnel are first responders in severe weather conditions, interrupting time with their families at any hour and at a moment's notice to protect drivers and serve their community. Now therefore, I, David P. Black, do hereby honor snow removal personnel in the city of Papillion and do hereby urge all citizens to acknowledge and appreciate the valuable service performed by snow removal personnel to exercise caution whenever encountering snow plows upon our roadways and to limit non-essential driving during periods of severe winter weather conditions to allow snowplow drivers to clear the streets as quickly as possible and efficiently. You want to say something? No, thank you. One of the things... One of the stories I did get was from one of our very experienced drivers, very tenured, very experienced, and a very positive person who said after, I think, one of those last storms, that was probably one of their worst experiences. Snow was blowing up. They literally couldn't see, were they on the road or not, things icing up. People were out. Of course, they're exhausted, the eye strain. I think Jeff even contemplating pulling the crews off the road that night, but they stuck with it just so we could have clean streets. So thank you again. You want to share anything?
It was a heck of a first year to be a public works director, I can tell you. This isn't about me, it's about the staff that we have. It is truly a team effort. We get support from parks. They got guys that drive snow plows for us. The golf course maintenance folks drive plows for us. The police department, they assist us with getting cars off the road when we need to. Fire's always there when we need them. So this is really a team effort. It's about the guys that do this job. I'd never driven a snowplow until I gave it a whirl this year. I can tell you it's a heck of a lot harder than it looks. And I wasn't in a big truck. I was in a little 4x4 pickup. The snow was coming down. I had cars on either side of me. I was trying not to back into anything, trying to push the snow off the road. And these guys, they're driving these big trucks with big wings on the side of them, sanders, and all the elements. And so it truly is a lot harder job than what they make it look like. So I want to thank them for all they do for us and the dedication that they provide. So thank you.
Thank you. Nancy. Is Jody here? I didn't see her. Jody, come on up. She's coming up. Jody is our external auditor. For those in the audience, the scouts who are kind of learning about public meetings, one of the things we're required to do is have an external audit. So somebody who's not involved in the day-to-day business comes in and reviews the books, the financials, to see if we're doing things right or wrong, and or do we have the right controls in place. And that's what Jody and her firm does. And then one of the other things we do, it's called a comprehensive annual financial report, and I think you'll talk about it a little bit. That's an additional step we are not required to do. So we go up above and beyond what's required, and we publish even some more information, and the intent of that is transparency and readability of information. And that extra report then goes on to another board to review and critique and maybe give us an award for it. We've gotten an award like 8 years in a row for this extra step we do, so we'll see. But Jody.
All right, thank you. So yes, this year we did the audit. We appreciate and enjoy working with Nancy and her team. It's always nice. Nancy prepares this entire report, so all, I think, 112 pages of it this year. So that's exceptionally well. A lot of the cities in town, the auditors prepare the financial statements, so that's a huge undertaking that Nancy takes. So. This year, you again received an unmodified opinion on your financial statements, which is the best opinion that you can receive. It means your financial statements are materially correct in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and then you also follow GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And then we also issue a second opinion, which is we review your internal controls. We don't give really an opinion on it, but we do tell you that you did not have any material weaknesses. So as we review the financials and transactions in your controls, we did not note any material weaknesses. And there, we also look to make sure that you're complying with grants, and there were no findings with that. This year you did not expend more than $750,000 of federal funds, so we did not have to do the single audit. So, but the report was put together again, like I said, by Nancy, and she will be sending it in for the certificate award. Each year they send back comments, things we can improve upon, and she does a great job of going through that and making sure that we clear all of those notes. You get different reviewers every time, so they come back with different things that they like, ways that they like to have it. We always think, why do we get more? But that's kind of why. So everything was great. Any questions from anyone?
Any questions from council? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. And for the public, that is a public record, and we put it up on the website for people to review as well. Next is a consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve consent? Motion. I missed who that was with. Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Glover. Do we have any proponents? Any opponents? Council discussion?
Mayor?
Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, can I have C7 taken off?
C7 is pulled. Any other discussion? Please vote on everything except C7. Mr. Ingberg.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is item C7. Resolution 190045, a resolution to approve an agreement with the Nebraska Department of Transportation for federal aid project HSIP-50175 CN 22704 to award the contract for 96th Street and Highway 370 intersection improvements to Old Castle Materials Company doing business as Omni Engineering in the amount of $198,314.69. Is there a councilman that will introduce? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Stubbe. Second. Second by Councilwoman Klug. Do we have any proponents? Any opponents? Council discussion, Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, Jeff's already got one kudos tonight, but I'm going to give him another one, and this is with regard to this project. If you look at the information in the background, I think we had Jeff indicated there were 95 accidents at this location over the last 5 years, and I think it's great that they took the initiative to look at other sources for funding and to get safety funding from the DOT, which is great. And so I'd like to find out from Jeff with regard to when that project plans on starting and when they anticipate that the work will be completed.
Mr. Thompson.
Sure. Tentatively, it's scheduled for a July 1st start of this year, 2019, and completed within 30 working days, so basically a month and a half. So we should see that road completed by mid-August, roughly.
Any other questions? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item D1, Ordinance 1834, an ordinance to amend Section 205-249D4 of Chapter 205 zoning, Article 36, off-street parking, having to do with the regulators for parking recreational vehicles and trailers in a residential district. The applicant is the City of Papillion. Recreational vehicle amendment submitted by Councilwoman Klug. Is there a councilman will introduce? Introduced by Councilwoman Klug. Thank you. Item D2, Ordinance 1836, an ordinance to amend Chapter 24, Elections of the Papillion Municipal Code to add a new section requiring written notice of a proposed ordinance to redraw ward boundaries to be sent to residences which would move into a different ward as a result of such ordinance, and to require 3 readings of a proposed ordinance to redraw ward boundaries and to prohibit the suspension of any such readings, and that's submitted by Councilman Mumgard. Is there a councilman will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Mumgard. If people are here for either one of those, the public hearing will be at the next city council meeting, and then the meeting after that will be council discussion and a vote. Item D3, Ordinance 1840, an ordinance to approve a change of zone from R2 single-family residential medium density to R4 PUD2 multifamily residential specific planned unit development for the property legally described as Lot 1, Block 33, Beatles Addition, together with the north 55 feet of Lot 2, Block 33, Beatles Addition, together with Lot 4, Block 33, Beatles Addition, together with Block 32, Beatles Addition, all located in the northwest quarter of Section 26, Township 14 North, Range 12 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska. Generally located at 224 East 5th Street, 546 North Jefferson Street, 538 North Jefferson Street, and 504 North Jefferson Street. The applicant is St. Columba-Kill Church, St. Columba-Kill School Parish Center. Is there a council member that will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Ingberg. Item E1, ordinance, and again, public hearing will be the next council meeting, and council discussion and a vote the meeting after that. Item E1, Ordinance 1835, an ordinance to approve a change of zone from agricultural AG to R4 multifamily residential for the property legally described as a replatting of Lot 1, Seibold Acres, a subdivision as surveyed, platted, and recorded in Sarpy County, Nebraska, together with tax lots 3 and 4 in the south half of the southwest quarter of Section 32, Township 14 North, Range 12 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located on the northwest corner of 114th Street and Schramm Road. The applicant is Pinecrest Homes, LLC, Ashbury Creek 2. It's a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Proponents.
14710 West Dodge Road, representing the applicant. Ashbury Creek 2 is a separate subdivision from Ashbury Creek just south of that. It's a different SID. These typical lot sizes are 130 by, or 75 by 130. We are splitting this preliminary plat into 2 phases, and east and west phase will be coming in with the east phase. We've met with staff in regards to concerns in the floodway, and we have submitted that floodway modeling to change that, and according to the NRD, the FEMA will be reviewing that later this year. Here for any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? I'll close the public hearing. Item E2, Ordinance 1837, an ordinance to approve a change of zone from agricultural AG to MU mixed use for the property legally described as tax lot 3A1A1, located in the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 13 North, Range 11 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located on the northwest corner of South 150th Street and Capehart Road. The applicant is Ravenbrook, LLC, Sarpy County Power Park West. I'll open the public hearing. Proponents.
Matt North Law Firm, 1601 Dodge Street, Suite 3700, Omaha 68102. my privilege to be here tonight on behalf of the applicant Raven Northbrook LLC. This request is a change of zone to add this property, change it to a mixed-use district, which will ultimately be incorporated into the terms of our existing mixed-use development agreement for Sarpy County Power Park West. And it's a function of some ongoing master planning that provides some additional flexibility from a development standpoint. With that, I'll sit down and answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? And if you'd state your name for the record, welcome.
Will do. Hello, everyone. TJ Heinert, 15306 Capehart Road, Springfield, 68059. Temporarily, anyway. Eventually, Papillion. My opposition to this is really, I've had some discussions with Councilman Mumgard about it. The opposition isn't to the building per se. My opposition is to realigning the road and vacating 150th Street permanently and moving it to, obviously, between our property and Facebook. So we have issues with that. We've had some discussions with them and the engineers about it, kind of conveyed our concerns to them, and hopefully we can work something out, because obviously I see the writing on the wall that the road's probably going to get moved either way, but we're working on that. A couple of the concerns that I have, and just kind of the things that we've asked for, and I think if some of you guys can turn to, or you have in your packet there, page 30, where it has the map where 153rd Street comes out. If you look on there, the apron is basically, it rolls right into our driveway, and our mailbox is right there. So basically, we're going to have the entrance to 153rd Street, the stop sign, and then our driveway's right there. So we've talked to them about the concern for that, and potentially asking them to move our entrance off of Capehart Road and move it up to 153rd Street, where it would make sense, where we could do that, so that then the people that are coming to our park that I have, which I should have mentioned earlier, we do have a private dog park that we have on the property that we allow members to come out, and that we put in last year, and allow them to, we fenced in 6 acres and allow them to run their dogs and do whatever they want out there during the day, sun up to sundown. So that's part of our concern, is making sure it's safe for them. Plus, I do have teenage drivers, so that's a concern too, to make sure that it's safe for everybody to access the property. The other issue we do have out there, and I've talked to Turner about it and Facebook about the water issue that we have coming off of all the properties upstream. Basically, the way it sits now, our property is where all the water comes from. That entire, it's not just Facebook, Oxbow, Omaha Box Company, and Travelers. It comes from even part of Google's property on the far west end near 156th Street, comes underneath Schramm and then ends up onto our property through the creek system. So we're getting a lot of water. I mean, pretty much last week, I mean, it was flooded severely on Wednesday, not from the snow. The snow had melted, everything had washed away, and our creek was normal. But then, Wednesday we had tons of water, and it was flooded and had a lot of damage. So I've asked them, or we've talked about it, is between our two properties, all of that water flows through there, and it goes from their property underneath my fence and then comes onto our side. So I've asked for an engineered solution there between the two properties in order to somehow control that water so it's not coming out of the banks every time it rains. The other issue we asked for, we talked about, was I know that in the Planning Commission, they've already agreed to a landscape barrier to kind of protect our view a little bit so we don't have the road. The way the road's going to be configured, it's actually going to be probably, I don't know, Eric's here, he can probably, I know it's not been designed yet, but it's literally going to be probably 40 or 50 feet above, where our house is sitting. So everybody up there, when it comes, because it's way high up top where the other house, and then it's going to come down and level out to where Capehart is. So it's quite a bit, the view is going to be right into, our front yard, our backyard, and our side yard. So they've agreed to that, and I think we can work on that. And the only other thing we've asked for is somehow, because of the park, the house sits about 700 feet off Capehart, and we put the entrance to the dog park probably about 600 feet off Capehart, so that if anybody, their dog gets loose or something, it's not running onto Capehart and getting hit by a car, right? That'd be bad for business, bad PR for me all the way around. So we moved it all the way up there knowing that, but then now just off to the east, I'm gonna have a road, a couple hundred feet away. So I've asked for a fence similar to the one that they're putting on Capehart right now, just not a fancy fence, not a wrought iron fancy one, just they're putting a, it's not sheep and goat material, but it's some type of material along Capehart that we've asked to fence off part of that area so that we can at least give somebody, if their dog does get loose, time to, get their dog before it reaches 153rd Street. And then the only other concern that I have, and the issue is, and we kind of haven't talked to them, we kind of did talk about it, but my issue is access. So last year when we did Capehart Road, obviously all of us, my neighbors and myself, had to exit to the east, or excuse me, to the west and go to 168th Street, up over the interstate, and then come up onto 370, which causes obviously a huge, detour for 6 or 8 months. So what we're asking for is that if this does go through and the road is moved, that we somehow always have access to Highway 50, whether that means we do Capehart first, and then we can exit out Capehart and go to Highway 50, or if they do 153rd first, that we're able to access 153rd and then go up to Schramm and out to Highway 50, so that we're not, constantly having to drive on the gravel roads through the mud and the rain and everything else that goes along with it. So with that, I don't have anything else. If anybody has any questions, I guess I would answer any.
Mr. Mumgarden.
Well, first I have a procedural question for the mayor. This is on a change of zone, public hearing. We also have a hearing and vote later on the preliminary plat. Are we combining the public hearings, or should I hold my questions for the preliminary plat where we get a vote?
On the preliminary plat, we'll call for proponents, opponents.
Okay, I'm going to hold my questions, Mr. Heinert, until we get to F7, and then we'll discuss it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any other opponents? Anybody neutral? I'll close the public hearing. Item F1, Resolution R190034. This is a public hearing and a vote. A resolution to approve a preliminary plat for the property legally described as a replatting of Lot 1, Siebold Acres, a subdivision, as surveyed, platted, and recorded in Sarpy County, Nebraska, together with tax lots 3 and 4 in the south half of the southwest quarter of Section 32, Township 14, North Range 12, east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located on the northwest corner of South 114th Street and Schramm Road. The applicant is Pinecrest Homes, LLC, Ashbury Creek 2. I'll open the public hearing.
Good evening, Pat Hillier, representing the applicant again. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution R190034? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Stube. Any council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F2, Resolution R190039, a public hearing and a vote. A resolution to approve a special use permit to allow for building additions and parking lot modifications on the property legally described as Tax Lot 8, located in Section 33, Township 14, North Range 12, east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located 10799 Highway 370. The applicant is Papillion La Vista Community Schools, Papillion South High School. I'll open the public hearing. Proponents.
Hi, Rob Vanderveen with Lamper Nearson, 14710 West Dodge Road, representing the school district. Just brief summary, special use permit is for several new building additions. There was an existing special use, but this is just amending it to encapsulate the new building additions and future parking lot reconfiguration. So,
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? Close the public hearing. Do you have a motion to approve Resolution R190039? Motion by Councilman Ingberg. Second by Councilwoman Klug. Any council discussion? Please vote. Mr. Mumgarden. Yes or no?
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F3, Ordinance 1801, an ordinance to approve a change of zone from AG agricultural to R4 PUD2 multifamily residential with a PUD2 overlay for the property legally described as a tract of land being located in part tax lot 6, a tax lot located in part of the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter and part of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter, section 21, township 14 north, range 12 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located northeast of Whitmas Drive and Cornhusker Road. The applicant is Woodland Homes, Inc., Granite Lake, Phase 3. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 1801? Motion by Councilman Stubbe. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Any council discussion? The applicant is here, the representative, if there's any questions. No council discussion? Please vote.
Seven ayes, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item F4, Resolution R190040, a resolution to approve a final plat for the property legally described as a tract of land located in all of tax lot 6, a tax lot located in the, no, we just did that one. Wait a minute. I got off. We just did, oh no, we did the change of zone. We're on the final plat. So F4, Resolution R190040, a resolution to approve a final plat for the property legally described as a tract of land located in all of tax lot 6, a tax lot located in the southwest quarter of section 21, along with part of tax lots 1, 2A, and 3A, tax lots located in the northwest quarter of section 28, all located in township 14 north, range 12 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located northeast of Whitmas Drive and Cornhusker Road. The applicant's Woodland Homes, Inc., Granite Lake, Phase 3. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190040? Motion by Councilman Klug. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Proponents?
ENA Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, Omaha, 68154. On behalf of the applicant, this is the third and final phase of Granite Lake. Includes 59 lots, single-family lots, and also the extension of Whitmas Drive and Cornhusker Road. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote.
Seven ayes, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Mr. Sunday, on the last item, F3, which was the change of zone, your vote didn't register. Were you a yes or a no on that? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Apologize for that. Item F5, Resolution R190041, a resolution to approve the Second Amendment to the Granite Lake Subdivision Agreement. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190041? Motion. Motion by Councilman Stubbe. Second by Councilman Glover. Do we have any proponents? I'll note for the record the applicant's still here. Any opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
Seven ayes, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F6, Resolution R190042, a resolution to approve the Granite Lake Villas Planned Unit Development Agreement. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190042? Motion. Motion by Councilman Stubbe. Second by Councilman Mumgard. Proponents? I'll note the applicants here. Any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
Seven ayes, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F7, Resolution R190043, a public hearing and a vote. A resolution to approve a preliminary plat for the property legally described as Tax Lot 3A1A1, located in the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 13 North, Range 11 East of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located on the northwest corner of South 150th Street and Capehart Road. The applicant is Raven Northbrook LLC, Sarpy County Power Park West Edition. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. I will carry comments over, but it is a new public hearing. So do we have any other proponents? And if you'd state your name for the record.
I'm Kevin Zock, and I am the landowner just to the I guess, the north of this proposed project. So I'm a proponent. We've been living out there before any of the development started out there, and a lot's changed in the last couple of years. I have to say to TJ, you know, we've had really good relationship with Turner Construction, with Facebook. I think that they'll take care of you and alleviate some of the concerns as many as they can. They really probably can't lower the elevation of the road down to the same level as your house, but I would just say I'd be confident that they could overcome your concerns.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? And again, we'll carry the comments over from the previous item as well. I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution R19-0043? Motion by Councilman Ingberg. Second by Councilman Stube. Any council discussion? Mr. Mumgard.
Yeah, Mr. Heinert, would you please come back up here? I've got some questions. Okay, I'm looking at the map that the plat that shows that the street will be realigned to swing out and be over near that western property. That's the property you own, right? So right now you're not adjacent to a street, but in the future, if this happens, you will be adjacent to a street.
Yes, and that's part of what's my issue, is that obviously, is this on? Is it on? Okay, there you go. I gotta pull it down closer. That was part of the discussion that I had with Facebook, and you know, our reasonable expectations when we brought this property a year and a half ago, or a year in October, is that, you know, we obviously knew that Facebook was there. They already were grading. They already were getting ready to start building. So we knew that, you know, that was the situation. We also knew that the construction parking was going to be there. They were going to use that as their staging area. We knew that Dr. Hollins owned this ground and that he potentially could be selling it to anybody, right? And the fact that Facebook is buying it and building a building on there, we're okay with. But I'm not. My problem is with moving the road, because there was no way for me to foresee that Facebook was going to come in and say, "Hey, we want to move 150th Street from where it's at currently right next to your property." I mean, I don't think anybody would reasonably expect them or expect me to think that that was going to happen. So it dramatically affects, you know, my property from a value standpoint, plus just the view and everything else.
Well, okay, you use the term reasonable expectations, and frankly, that's always important to me when we're talking about either change of use of a land or something like this where the street substantially changes where it's at. So let me explore, you know, those expectations and what they might mean. You've explained what you expected. You didn't expect to have a road next to you, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, now I also need to look at benefit detriment. If there's really no detriment to you and there's great benefit to the developer, well, then I'm sorry, I can't agree with you. Tell me, how's that street going to hurt you as it's envisioned? You mentioned a driveway. Be specific. What's wrong with the driveway alignment?
Well, I think the way it is now, and obviously, you know, from what they've told me, it hasn't been engineered yet, but obviously the stop sign from 153rd and Capehart is literally going to be feet from where our entrance to our driveway is off Capehart already. And there are mailboxes right there, because you can see on page 30 on the documents that you provided, the driveway into our property has been shifted all the way to the east line of our lot, because we have the power line right there, and then there's the culvert going into the box inlet that is right there that goes underneath Capehart Road, which is right by our property. I don't know, can I plug into this thing? Does it work through USB or no? Or can I set my iPad on there? Will that work? No? Negative? Nobody? Anybody? No? I can set it on there and it'll work?
Well, I'm looking at the plat, and I guess I'm not sure which page that is.
Okay, that's fine.
I guess it's C2.2.
Well, it's page 30 in the document shows it's just a paper, it's similar to this right here, that,
Okay.
and it shows it.
we're looking at the same thing.
Yeah, so literally right here,
But-
you can see on here, that road, the road is projected to come out about right here, and the apron is actually gonna be right next to where the mailbox is. And our driveway can't be shifted farther east because we have the inlet right here that catches all the water from the, I guess, the ditch coming down Capehart, and then the guardrails there, and then this large, this large inlet right here, is right there, so we can't really shift our driveway to the west. So I mean, we're going to be literally right on top of the road. So
Well, what's the solution? If they put the street there and you're right on top of the intersection,
Well,
how do we avoid that?
well, we've asked in discussion with them last week, and then with Mr. Whelan from Facebook on Monday, was to take our drive and maybe exit right here and enter onto 153rd Street from that off of our driveway instead of having to go down to Capehart. I mean, I'd prefer to stay on Capehart, but it's just not gonna, to me, it's not gonna work if the stop sign is gonna be right there and we're literally gonna be right on top of each other. So in the sanitary sewer, that's what they're putting in on this Google Earth thing. That's last year, at the beginning of the year, they were putting the sanitary sewer right along the property line. So there's an easement there as well for the sanitary sewer for
okay.
Sarpy County.
How far north are you talking? And, okay, if I understand it right, if you did that, if you turned the driveway and connected to 153rd Street, it would have to cross, I think, what they're calling Outlot A.
Yes, I believe that's the way it's drawn on there is Outlot A, which is, yeah, there's like 10 acres or something but the Outlot A, if you can see it on here, it's all of this right here is they're considering, well, I guess you can't see it, huh? It's basically, Outlot A runs basically everything west of the new
Okay.
road.
Well, that's where that sanitary sewer runs now,
Correct,
right?
and where all the water runs, yes.
Okay, well, I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so you're asking us to compel Facebook to reconstruct the end of your driveway there to turn east and connect to 153rd Street across Outlot A.
Yes, I have asked them in the 2 conversations I've had with them to see if that's a possibility, because I don't know, since the road's not engineered yet, that apparently comes afterwards. I don't know what the actual engineering of that is, if it's, I don't want to say up to code, or it's allowable to have our exit right there next to the stop sign. And obviously, from my standpoint, is I think it's a problem,
Well,
and in the future, and I read through staff comments that, I mean, I think most people in the room know that, they're in talks of buying the ground to the south of us, which then in the staff comments, it talks about Springfield and Sarpy County wants them to realign 150th Street farther south, or 150th Street to move over to 153rd eventually. So that's what they've talked about in the staff recommendations, and in what Springfield has said that they think makes sense as well. So we're not just gonna have the road stop there. Eventually, it's gonna go south and then reconnect back over to 150th Street.
All right, so your
going to
driveway
Fairview.
eventually will be right on top of not just a two-way intersection, but a complete four-way
Yeah, it'd be a
intersection.
4-way concrete intersection.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously, that's a concern. There's no illusion. I didn't buy this property under the illusion that it was going to stay a gravel road the whole time. Part of the reason we liked the property was because it was being developed. The road was going to be paved to 150th Street, and that means I only have 3 blocks of gravel instead of, a mile and a half. So, I mean, obviously, that's a benefit to us, and we understand that. The only difference is moving 150th Street from its current configuration, now causes these problems for us, which, we're trying to deal with.
Well, okay, you also mentioned the drainage. What's the specific problem again with the drainage?
Well, we have an issue, and I sent some stuff to the staff, to the building department, and I sent some stuff to Turner about it, and we had conversations about it, about one of their retention ponds not working. But this is kind of some pictures of the actual, what it looks like right now, and it'll kind of show you some of our water issues that we get from not only, it's not just Facebook, and they know that, I know that, I understand that, but it is coming. Unfortunately, they're the ones next to me, and they're the ones that are going to move a road. So I'm asking that between both of us, we figure out a solution, because that's the creek right now. It's just a little 3 or 4 foot creek that Mother Nature made. That's a new 6 foot inlet or a culvert that I put in over the winter time to handle part of the water. That's the bridge over the road. And then you'll see coming up here, this is from last Wednesday, the amount of water that we carry through this park. And it'll get a little bit closer here. You understand that basically 2/3 of the park is underwater. And when I showed up Wednesday at noon, we took this video and I called Turner and they came down. Came down quickly. It's kind of quick. You can't slow down. But there is tons of water coming through there. And that's the 6 foot culvert that you can't see. So we're carrying a ton of water. And then that's the box culvert down there, and it's got 4 foot of water in it. And then there's one of Turner's retention ponds it's not working. So I did talk to them about that. And so basically all of that water is rushing down towards the 2 property lines, and then it's coming along the fence line, and then it's going underneath the fence onto my property. And it's not all Facebook's water, but it is. A lot of it is, and then it's Oxbow, and it's Omaha Box Company, which are north of them.
How would you propose to fix that problem?
Well, I don't know that it can be fixed. What I've asked for, and what Eric and I discussed last week, was somehow to get some type of solution so that when that water comes off the natural, and let me go back to it so we can see. There's a natural area up here between the properties. Along this tree line here where it's kind of, I hate to use the term wetlands, but it's an area there where nobody mows it, nobody farms it, and there's a bunch of trees and the water runs through there. But then when it comes down and converges on our property, between Facebook and our property, it becomes, turns into the creek, and Mother Nature over time has worn out the ground and washed it out, and it's developed a creek through our property.
Okay, well, does that drainage come down where they're going to put the street?
It is going to be, the street will be higher up. It's because of the sanitary sewer. The sanitary sewer basically runs right through the water area.
Well, okay, if they put the street there without fixing the drainage issue or doing something with the drainage issue, can't that be done later, or what's the problem with putting the street there?
Well, what we've asked for is some type of solution to help control the water and try to keep it within a certain area so that it's not always running just wherever. Obviously, them putting in the road, we've discussed this, and Eric and I know this, that putting in the road with storm sewer and curb and gutter is going to help corral some of that, plus the retention ponds that they have, but it's not going to control the water that's just going to run off coming up from, the other areas. So because right now the water is on Facebook's side, and then halfway down it comes across underneath the barbed wire fence and comes underneath onto our side. Eventually it has to get to my property because the creek meets in the middle of our property. But we're just asking that we get some help and some relief on that side between the 2 properties in order to somehow corral the water to keep it going where it needs to go, instead of having it, basically go wherever it wants. And right now we're getting a ton of water off the retention ponds from Facebook because that water is just coming straight to us.
Okay, and then you want landscaping between the street and or somewhere between the street and your property line?
They've already put that in there. It's already included.
They've agreed to do that?
It. That was the offer before we even talked. So that was something that they agreed. And obviously, anything that we can do to obscure the view from the house of the road and people looking down into the house would be appreciated. So I'm happy about that. Yes.
Okay. Then you talked about Capehart staying open. Okay, that's a future issue. I mean, Capehart right now, what is that? A 50-mile-per-hour road?
I don't even know. Really? I don't even know if I don't even think there's a speed limit sign on there. Maybe it's 45. I don't know. But we get, obviously, it was naive for me to think that you guys vacating 150th Street was going to be good for us. Because I thought, well, great, they're going to vacate that road. Facebook's going to force all of their construction traffic to the north where they put in the stoplight. No. It just closed it for everybody else, and they still come out that way. And today at 3:30 to get onto Highway 50 from Capehart, there's about 40 or 50 cars deep to turn, but that's fine, whatever. It's not a big deal, but so that's the way it is at this point to get onto Capehart. So I think the speed limit's probably 45 through that area.
Okay, well, I guess you stay there, because I need some help from staff. Mr. Gibbons, now that we've heard his, problems, is there anything in the well, okay, as I understand, outline the process for me. As I understand, we're approving a preliminary plat, but there's also a subdivision agreement that needs to be approved, and there's a final plat, and then there's a vacation of the street. Are those all separate future votes?
Yes. So if this was preliminary plat was approved, they would submit for planning commission for final plat. Subdivision agreement would come after the final plat before you as another vote. There's also a exchange agreement that would be required. There's also, the vacation process and the mixed use agreement as well. So, and Carla can probably, if there's another agreement that I'm missing, but there's multiple votes that are coming up on this.
Well, okay, if Facebook is going to agree to take care of these problems that Mr. Heinert has outlined, where does that agreement get put in front of us? How do we participate in that?
With the preliminary plat, one of the conditions was the applicant addressing future access, future easements, whether it be an easement or a right-of-way condition, as part of the subdivision agreement process. So during that time, they've agreed to continue their negotiations with staff in this process to negotiate future access to east-west connection points. This could include his property as well, if that's the condition in the consideration of the council.
Well, if we just approve the preliminary plat here without anything further, does that commit Facebook to take care of his problems?
Well, it would be like I said, the very first condition is them negotiating under the subdivision agreement to provide access, whether it be an easement or a right-of-way agreement in the future. So they're not, if you agree it tonight, it's not bound that they don't have to do anything. This is a negotiation that is still ongoing.
And there'll be another public hearing and a
Yes.
vote on that item.
Okay, but I guess my problem is if we approve a preliminary plat as it's presented to us without any additional conditions dealing with what Mr. Heinert wants, then that doesn't force them to put those things in the final plat, because the final plat has to agree with the preliminary plat. So don't we have to take care of or get some commitments from Facebook at this point?
Well, like I said, the staff report has built in many contingencies, which,
Yeah.
like I said, the drainage, the mixed use, all the conditions and concerns that you've raised, some of them are already being taken care of. One will be with the mixed use agreement, with landscaping, et cetera. The items with Capehart Road and the closure, that would be up to the council to decide. Like I said, this particular instance where the staff has looked at future east-west connections, and we don't know what the ultimate build-out of the west is going to be yet. We just don't know that yet. So we've left a broad interpretation on the plat, on the preliminary plat itself. That's a note and it's a condition on the plat itself, on the preliminary, that talks about the applicant having to provide an easement or right-of-way in the future subdivision agreement. So that is a negotiated position with us.
Okay.
That has to be approved by the city council.
Okay, I read that, and I read that in the context of future development of the property to the west, Mr. Heiner's property. And I didn't read that as including a commitment that they had to do something for the present use of that property. But he's talking about the present use. Are you saying that portion of the proposed subdivision agreement does include a commitment that they provide access to Mr. Heinert?
Well, at this point, like I said, it is a broad, generalized term. And like I said, we can't contemplate every position that's occurred to the west of here.
Procedurally, all of those items could be addressed in the subdivision agreement.
Okay, now, what do I do procedurally to make sure they are going to be? And I don't want anybody, Facebook or anybody, coming back and saying, "Oh, but you didn't tell me that when the preliminary plat was approved." I mean, I've got no problem with moving the street.
Mr.
and I
Mumgarden?
have
Well,
no
the
problem-
applicant is here.
Mr. Mumgarden, I think, and I'll look to Ms. Rupiper, I think what would be appropriate would be either maybe an amendment on the preliminary, or maybe even just simply an approval of the preliminary contingent upon, and then list those items, and then that way it's in the record, the contingency.
Okay, and I'd have to do that by way of an amendment?
You know, unless staff says different, unless Ms. Rupiper says different, I think it would just be a motion to approve the resolution contingent upon, list those items, and then we get a second and a vote, and then that way it's part of the record, unless there's a need for a specific amendment.
And then we will understand
That
those
would be
items
in
to
the record
include
then, that
this.
would be
Okay.
addressed in the subdivision. It's on the record that the contingency is there. Ms. Rupiper.
Or you can just take out the road. I mean, that would be the solution that I'd be looking for. That's what I want. It's not what I need, is what I want.
Well,
is
okay.
not to have the road.
Why don't I ask the developer to come forward and, in all fairness, let's hear what's going to happen.
Well, I appreciate the discussion and the opportunity to respond to some of that. To Mr. Gibbons' point, and actually at the outset I should say that one of the things is, I think with this particular developer, I think over the last 3 years we have shown that we're good partners, and that the first go-around on Sarpy County Power Park West and Sarpy County Power Park East, we were absolutely willing to sit down and listen. As Mr. Heinert's mentioned, we've met 3 times, either in person or over the phone. A number of those concerns are already addressed. With respect to the specific question of the access, from the outset, the conversation with the city has always been Raven Northbrook needs to be prepared to provide connectivity for an east-west connection, and that potentially that may include a private access easement, but the focus has always been on the east-west connectivity when the properties to the west develop and plat. This is something that would be a stark departure from standard operating procedure for Raven Northbrook, to have a private access easement across property it owns. That being said, we did just sort of have this request socialized to us two days ago. So it's something we just haven't had a chance to vet internally what that would look like and how high that needs to escalate up the corporate chain before we're able to make a final decision. That's not to say that that conversation will not be ongoing, because it will be. We understand Mr. Heinert's concerns. There will be ongoing conversations. And as Mr. Gibbons noted, the intent all along has been to address access and east-west connectivity inside the subdivision agreement, following some of these comments from the public at large.
Mr. Mumgarden, I think it'd be appropriate if we do a motion to approve contingent upon, list what that contingency is, and then that way it is part of the record. Preliminary plat can continue forward, and then that contingency can be addressed in subdivision agreement.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, that's where I'm going. I appreciate conversations, but I like promises better.
Fair enough.
And you're telling us that you're not in a position to make those promises today, right?
I am not. That's correct.
Okay, that's fine. I guess that does come later on when you come back to us. Let me outline my thinking for you.
Sure.
Okay, Facebook is coming in here and moving that street for the purpose of gaining something extremely valuable. You're going to build a multi-million-dollar building there and expand, the size of the premises and make business so much better for Facebook. They're just going to be able to do things wonderfully because of that. But they can only do that if they move the street. Okay, if moving the street then causes the problems that Mr. Heinert has outlined, which I think are legitimate problems. I don't want that. If I was my driveway, I wouldn't want to be sitting a few feet away from your major, let's face it, in the future, that could be a major intersection.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Well, the staff report indicates 150th, and at this point, 153rd is only one of the few main north-south streets. So
Correct.
looking 10 years down the road, we might have a major problem there if we don't move that driveway. So I'm thinking, well, that's a fair trade-off for Facebook to get this huge benefit at the expense of paying for that, that new alignment of his driveway. Otherwise, Mr. Heinert's sitting there and he either has this continual problem of getting in and out of his driveway, or he has to pay to swing that driveway someplace else. Well, I don't think it's fair for Facebook to come in and get the benefit and then put that additional cost on the neighboring property owner. So I'll just tell you right now, I'm not looking that I'll ever approve either vacation of that road or final plats. If that's the situation, Facebook comes in and gets this huge benefit at the expense of a neighboring property owner, I don't see that that's fair. The drainage issue, I kind of see what he's talking about. Even if you're not causing the drainage, once you put the street there, a street that, he talked about reasonable expectations, that nobody should have expected would be there. Once you put the street there, it makes it harder to fix the drainage. So it seems to me that when you fix the drainage when you put the street there, and from that standpoint, I don't think it makes any difference where that water comes from, you or Oxbow or anybody. So I'm looking at it that, again, Facebook gets the benefit, and the guy next door can't ever fix his drainage problem.
So procedurally, we've got a motion and a second already on the floor. We're kind of moving into discussion on the other. So maybe what's appropriate would be an amendment.
I will do that. I just want to make sure that the developer understands where I'm going, if nobody else. So I'll thank you for your comments, and I would encourage you to continue those conversations and turn them into promises.
Well, I appreciate your candor, and we'll continue those conversations.
So I think what an appropriate motion to amend would be a motion to amend to add a contingency. That might be the easiest way to do it. So if you want to make that and articulate it.
Are we ready for that?
I think so. Mr. Stubbe.
I agree with some of the comments that Mr. Mumgard is making, and I understand the predicament that the property owner to the west there is in. But from a process standpoint, there are conditions within the preliminary plat. Before final plat and before subdivision agreement comes back to us, before they can even submit it to us, staff has to agree that those particular conditions have been met, correct?
That's correct.
So in that particular case, I'm not necessarily sure that an amendment needs to be made because the conditions within the preliminary plat already identify working with the property owner to come up with an acceptable access over to 153rd Street.
I think the only question would be, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, it's just the procedure. I think the question would be, is the city councilman comfortable that those comments are appropriately reflected in the report then to do what you say?
Gotcha.
I think that'd probably be a fair question. So I'll look to Mr. Mumgard. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ingberg.
Well, I understand what Councilman Mumgard's trying to do, and your comments as well, but I guess I would also say it seems a little redundant. As we've gone through preliminary plats previously, we've had contingencies on, if not all of them, a good portion of them, and they've always been addressed when we come to the final plat, when we come to the final on any subdivision agreements, because quite honestly, those contingencies that are listed are going to remain there, whether we amend it tonight or not. And quite honestly, the council will have an opportunity when we do the final plat that if Councilman Mumgard or Stubbe or myself or anybody has some heartburn over whether or not the contingencies were met, we simply vote against it. It's. I guess I'm trying not to muddy the waters by having an amendment and then try to decide, because if we leave out a contingency tonight, then what happens? I'd rather keep the process a little more pure, and when it comes back to us, it gives them a chance, Mr. Heinert and the developer and our staff, some time to work on those contingencies, and it may be a moot point by the time it gets back to us. Some, if not all of them, are resolved. and then we vote on it. And if none of us are satisfied with it, vote no against it.
Any other council? Any other council? Because we are in council discussion.
You know, and I'm going to thank my fellow council members because I'll agree with you. Okay, what I'm hearing is that it's the sense of the council that the contingencies that are already there are sufficient to take care of, to force, or to require Facebook to sit down and reach agreement with Mr. Heinert, the neighboring property owner. And that's what I'm hearing from my fellow council members. And if that's the view that the council's taking when they approve this preliminary plat, that's fine with me. I don't need an amendment.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Ingberg.
Well, just to answer your question, I think, Mr. Mumgard, it's whether it's written or not, to me, doesn't make a lot of difference at this point, because we have it on record from both individuals tonight in the public hearing what the concerns are and where the property owner's at, not being able to consider some of the material before tonight. So as long as we have that on public record, I think we all know what concerns have been presented, and we address that when we vote on it, when we do the final.
Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, I guess I would go back to what Mr. Mumgard said, is that there is an expectation. If I was a property owner to the west, there'd be an expectation on my part that my driveway is being impacted. And I think that's reflective in the comments. And obviously, there's already been comments by the opponent tonight. And I would think our staff would take that information and say, yes, we recognize there's an issue there. Before it comes back to us as a final plat, there needs to be some resolution relative to that.
Any other council discussion? If not, please vote.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item F8, Resolution R190044, a public hearing and a vote. A resolution to approve a comprehensive plan amendment for the property legally described as Tax Lot 3A1A1, located in the southwest quarter of Section 2, Township 13 North, Range 11 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska. Generally located on the northwest corner of South 150th Street and Cape Art Road. The applicant is Raven Northbrook LLC, Sarpy County Park Power West Edition. Public hearing. I'll open it. I'll carry all the comments over. The applicant is still here. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190044? Motion by Councilman Ingberg. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Any council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F9, Ordinance 1831, an ordinance to amend Chapter 205 zoning ordinance, Article 22, having to do with mixed-use district. The applicant is the City of Papillion. Is there a motion to approve Ordinance 1831? Motion by Councilman Klug. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Any council discussion? Please vote.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F10, and the next three are related items. F10, Ordinance 1832, an ordinance to amend Section 205-270, Section 205-272, and Section 205-228, all of Article 38, wireless telecommunications facilities of Chapter 205, the Papillion Municipal Code, having to do with small wireless facilities and small wireless facility support poles. The applicant is the City of Papillion. Is there a motion to approve Ordinance 1832? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Glover. Any council discussion? Please vote.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F11, Resolution R190047, a resolution to approve the City of Papillion Design Manual for installation of small wireless facilities and small wireless facility support poles dated March 2019. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190047?
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Klug. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Do you have any proponents? Do you have any opponents? Any council discussion? Mr. Stubbe.
Yes, I'm going to put Jeff on the spot here. So,
Mr. Thompson.
So Jeff, I didn't really notice anything in the design manual, and obviously I didn't read it word for word, but I like to look at pictures, drawings, to see if there's any examples of what would be an expectation on our part relative to height above the ground, how it looks around the antennas, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't see any of that in here. And as an employee of the city of Omaha that's been working on this particular issue, I think having some example of what our expectation would be if somebody wants to come down and put an antenna on a pole, how far above the ground is it? How does it look? How many wires are sticking out? So from an aesthetic standpoint, there's something that can be.
I'm going to make a little bit of a
guidance.
general comment, then I'll turn it over to either Mr. Thompson or Mr. Gibbons. But and this is a little bit for the public. Items F10, 11, and 12, small wireless facilities. We're in a little bit, this is a little bit time urgent, why it's on the agenda tonight. The FCC at a federal level passed an order, I think they called it, I've got the name of it, Accelerating Wireless Broadband Deployment by Removing Barriers to Infrastructure Investment, which basically said they want to remove all local control and let the wireless industry do anything they want to do. And back to your thing of pictures, Mr. Mumgard went down to the legislature and actually testified for us and had some very good pictures. There are some very good examples of small wireless implementations, but there are also some very bad ones. And some of the bad ones, literally, you could have 5 or 6 cells on one pole. The power generation, if it's not regulated, literally under current FCC regulations, could be the size of a small refrigerator. Those refrigerators are sitting at the base of poles. Those poles can be in historic areas, so think of downtown Papillion and the streets that we just did all the landscaping on and had public dollars and public investment in that right-of-way. Without any type of design guidelines, they would almost have a unilateral right to place whatever they want to in that right-of-way. And there's even a couple of pictures, and Mr. Mumgard shared one with the legislature, where they have an absolute right to go onto private property. And a lady was sitting in her house looking out the front window at one of these poles in the middle of her yard. And we've got those pictures from around the nation. So if we don't adopt design guidelines and these agreements, I think it's by mid-April, April 15th, that FCC order removes all of our right to regulate, and they can come in and do anything they want to do. So with that being said, by adopting the guidelines tonight, we have design guidelines in place that satisfy the FCC requirements, so when an application comes in, we can regulate them. With that being said, there's nothing to say that if we want to improve them down the road that we can't amend this. So it doesn't answer your question directly, but if there is something missing, just kind of a general statement, let's get something passed tonight so we can protect our public right-of-ways, and then we can address it. But I'll turn the question over to Mr. Gibbons.
To answer your question quickly, I think it's a great idea. I mean, we were rushed with this process to get this document done in time. I think it's a great idea to have illustrations. That would be a general guidance, and we can do that. To give you a little bit of background as well, that LB 189, which is in this, at the Senate right now, that's a compromise bill for this as well, for small cells from the telecommunications industry and with the cities as well. We have a very hard moving target right now, so there's been some compromise between the wireless facilities and the League of Cities, and there's a lot of language that's been changing back and forth on a daily basis, and we anticipate that this document is going to have to be amended to meet those regulations over the next couple of weeks, especially if it goes to a floor vote. So there is an opportunity to amend this document as we need to, but I do think that having illustrations would be a great idea.
And we'll take that for staff if you're comfortable passing something tonight.
Yeah, I'm okay with approving this. I just think it's important to have something that shows what we would expect it to look like, and whether it's done by a submittal to us that we would approve, but if there's nothing in there that kind of gives some guidance, I think that that might be difficult for us in the future when somebody does come knocking at the door wanting to put an antenna up.
And just note for council, if you've been following the state legislation, that legislative bill he referenced was set by the committee as a priority bill just yesterday. So the bill is moving forward, and that's one of our concerns. If we don't have this in place, that bill can further erode our rights. Any other council discussion? And we will note that. Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F12, related, Resolution R190048, a resolution to approve a master agreement for small wireless facility attachments and small wireless facility support poles in public right-of-ways dated March 2019. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190048? Motion by Councilman Klug. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Any proponents? Any opponents? Council discussion. Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
And again, a little bit for the public, but also for the record, that agreement does set all of the fees then, so it is in compliance with the FCC order. Item F13, Ordinance 1833, an ordinance to amend, to approve a change of zone from LC Limited Commercial to CC Community Commercial for the property legally described as Lot 4, Summerfield, 2nd Edition, generally located at 780 Pinnacle Drive. The applicant is Jared Reese, St. Martha's Episcopal Church. Is there a motion to approve Ordinance 1833? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Glover. Any council discussion? Ms. Klug.
Thank you. I am a member at St. Martha's Episcopal Church, and just because of possible perceived conflict, I'm asking to abstain from this vote, please.
And a request to abstain does, I believe, need a vote. It does not need a second or any discussion. So please vote on the request to abstain.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. No further council discussion. Please vote, and Councilwoman Klug is abstaining.
Six yeas, 1 abstain, Councilman Klug.
Motion passes. Item F14, Resolution R190057, a resolution to approve the waiver of camper fee per night of $16 at Walnut Creek Lake Recreation Area for the next 30 days. That was submitted by me. I'll explain it in council discussion why. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R190057? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. I heard a couple of seconds. Second by Councilwoman Klug. Do we have any proponents? I know we got the campground director here. I'll note that. Thanks for hanging around. Mr. Cunningham. Do we have any opponents? Any council discussion? This was not on the original agenda that was published Friday by 5 o'clock, which is our normal practice. We did amend the agenda on Monday morning, which is very unusual for us. I think we've only done that a couple of times in the last 10 years. But this is directly related to the floods over the weekend. When the floods hit, Mr. Cunningham brought it up that we've got that the camping area there is an asset, and we can leverage that for the community for recovery. So he opened it. It normally doesn't open until about April 1st. He got the campground opened. There's about 44 hard surface pads there for RVs. They have good electrical power. They have access to municipal water, and it's got a hard surface. So the idea was, if you're displaced from a home and you have access to an RV, move in here, and at least you got a safe place to reside. So we had a right to do that just administratively, but the fee is set by master fee schedule, so they did not have a right to waive that. We thought it was the right thing to do, so that's what we're asking, is a waiver of that fee for the next 30 days for flood displaced people. Thank you. Any other council discussion? Yes, sir.
I agree with you. How are we going to have them show us somehow that they're displaced, or are we just going to take everyone's word for it? Or?
I think so far, unless council provides other direction, I think we'll leave it to the discretion of the campground director. And I know he's been having those conversations when they move in, feeling them out of why are they here, and getting their story of why they're moving in. So unless council directs different, I think the intent would be his discretion.
I would just not like to see someone come in and take advantage of free camping for a month and displace someone that really needs the spots.
And I think this motion is waiver of the 30 days for flood displaced. So again, if he would detect that, no, they're just here camping, I think he would tell them to leave. But then that would not waive the fee either. So if you're comfortable that the intent is there, I'm okay with that. If we need to do something else, give that direction. Anything else? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you again, Mr. Cunningham, for thinking about that as well. I don't think that's a resource that a lot of us had thought about that was available, and we've already got people out there. People started showing up over the weekend. So if you're aware of anybody, spread the word on that. Any committee reports? Finance and Administration did meet.
Yes, we
Mr.
did.
Ingberg.
Before I report on that, Mayor, may I ask, can we bounce back and do the city administrator's report real quick before we continue?
That might be a good thing. Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Ingberg. I thought I was going to get by. I was trying to have a short report anyway since we had a long agenda. Again, I just wanted to extend a special thank you to those employees providing service relative to the flooding situations. First responders were recognized this morning, Public Works, Police, and Fire at Hy-Vee and with the breakfast and a lunch. So again, thank you. I know today as well we had electric building officials out doing some inspections in Sarpy County's jurisdiction relative to Hawaiian Village to try and help out that area as well. So again, thank you to all. Just a quick legislative update. We continue to keep a close eye on proposed legislation. Mayor Black and I traveled to Lincoln to meet with Senator Vargas to express our concerns regarding the Mobile Food Truck Act. Bottom line is the senators proposing that food trucks have unlimited access to all public areas. Certainly that's problematic for us, and we expressed that, and I think he recognized our concerns. And then lastly, we've got a tour scheduled for the Papillion Landing Community Center for Tuesday, April 30th, so a little ways out, but we'll remind you as that timeline gets closer. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Committee report. Mr. Ingberg.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Administration Committee met prior to the council meeting tonight, and we had really 3 or 4 items to deal with. First of all was the election of a new chairperson, and I was reelected to that, so that item was taken care of. The more important items, we reviewed the draft presentation of the water and wastewater rate studies. We met with the representatives, Corallo, 2 individuals from there. We reviewed both the draft on water and wastewater rates. Contained in that was how do we maintain our policy on reserve funds and capital improvements and those types of things. You may recall that we review that every 4 years, and so we need to get it accomplished before October this year. We would recommend to the full council to approve both the water and wastewater rates. We thought they were very reasonable, very conservative. The one item, part of the study that we did set aside for further review, within the next 90 days, we're going to do some additional work on the possible meter replacement program for the city. Everyone on the committee decided they wanted to have a little more discussion about possible ways to fund such a program, and it's a procedure review that we didn't feel we were comfortable enough to recommend to council. So that'll be forthcoming in the next 90 days. But you will be getting the water and wastewater rates soon for approval. And as I said, unanimously, we approved what the study and the city staff worked on, and they did a lot of work, and I commend Chris and Nancy and Amber for all their work on it. The last thing we had to deal with was a annexation discussion. It involves a annexation requested by Facebook, a small piece that they wish to annex. The staff reviewed, as they always do with annexation, the annexation committee reviewed the pros and cons, and the revenues, and usually a very conservative approach, found that it would be financially sound to do the annexation. So it'll be going next to the Planning Commission, I believe next Wednesday, and then probably the following council meeting, because there's some time elements involved, it'll be on the agenda for our approval for the annexation of that piece. And that concludes the report.
Thank you very much. I don't think any other committees met. Do we have any comments from the floor? Any? No? Any council comments? Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, I just wanted to express appreciation to the staff and all their work with regard to the building permits. I mean, if you look at the building permits that have come in the administrative report, I think it amounts to somewhere in the neighborhood of about $28 million worth of building permits. So obviously they're staying busy just dealing with all of that. And so we always hear from the Sarpy County Economic Development Corporation about how things are going in the county, and obviously we're staying on pace with regard to a lot of growth within the Papillion area, so that's great.
Thank you very much. Just a few comments. The base, the 55th wing, had a kind of a state of the wing update, and a lot of what they were talking about was the runway replacement project. And with the flooding over the weekend, I guess that got a little more urgent for them. Also had a student from Nebraska Christian College come up, was interested in kind of government, city administration, so we visited with them as part of that program. Gave a Papillion update to the Bellevue Papillion Rotary Club, and then Ms. Myers and I, as she mentioned, went down to Lincoln, met with Senator Vargas, and then she and I had a meeting with Metro Community College today, the president and some of his staff, as we're both doing some master planning, talking about some cooperative ideas between the two of us, and that was a very good discussion. And then just again, another thanks, Public Works, Police, and Fire. I think people understand the volume of snow we've been getting, and that's what that proclamation was about, was the efforts they've been doing there. And again, complaints always come with snow removal, and I don't know about the other elected officials, but I probably have received fewer complaints this year, and we've had more major events. So Jeff, just another testament to the work your folks do. And then as soon as they come off of that, of course, you got to go into pothole duty. And again, just driving around, I think our streets are probably in better condition than anybody else, but we still have them to deal with, and those crews are out doing 10 and 12-hour shifts on that. I think the no. The hot material that really they need, I think, just showed up in the last day or two. So that work is just really now starting on the potholes. And of course, be patient if you hear from constituents, because as the rain occurs, the freeze thaw, they will pop, and so that'll be a little bit of a continual work. And then with the floods that have come, Papillion, for the most part, everybody thinks was insulated, but if you remember, we do have our own municipal water system, and our well field is down by the Platte River by Hawaiian Village, and so the flooding was a real concern of ours, and that staff was heroic as well. They already had a lot of plans in place, redundant plans, backup plans to the redundant plans, backup to the backup plans. And luckily, we didn't have to execute all of those, but they were ready. And the system was never in danger. We never put water restrictions in, and again, don't take that for granted. The city of Lincoln has some wells not too far from ours, and they're on water restriction right now, mandatory. Plattsmouth is on a backup water system, and usage is exceeding the supply. And there's some other cities in the area that have actually shut off their water system. So don't take it for granted that ours is still operating. So great job by the staff down there as well. And then from a flood assistance perspective, just to share with you, fire department's been helping. I think when it first started, there were firemen down in Plattsmouth helping with sandbagging. We had individuals down there. Public Works got a call late Friday night to take any sand we had and get that out to the Air Force Base. So we helped with the runway recovery project. Unfortunately, right after we delivered our load of sand, I think is when they declared that it wasn't working. But again, our trucks were down there and the crews were there about 11 o'clock at night, so thank you for that. The police department, Public Works have been out at night helping the Sarpy Sheriff supplement with road patrols, blockages, traffic, that type of thing. So we've got a lot of people out helping, and then the campground and that as well. So also a big public thanks to the Papio NRD. The levee system and the whole structure of their building's working. If that system would have failed on the Papio, downtown would have been flooded, and we had no issues. And that's a direct relation. I mean, that's a direct tie to the NRD relationship and what we do with those levees and the dam structure. So big public thanks to the NRD as well. With that, if there's no other council comments, we do have a closed session tonight. I will state, well, first of all, is there a motion to go into closed session to protect the public interest to discuss labor negotiations and contract negotiations? Motion by Councilwoman Kluge. Second by Councilman Sunday. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote on the motion to go into closed session.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. I'll state for the record the purpose for the closed session is only to discuss labor negotiations and contract negotiations. Closed session will include the mayor, city council, city administrator, assistant city administrator, city attorney, and assistant city attorney.